funny. It's because he's running on an app or a tablet instead of a phone. And he's back.
That was dramatic. You're like,
It was.
and let's see what happens.
Right.
And the app just crashed.
Boom.
It's good timing. Good timing.
Yeah. Well, in theory, we're actually recording, so.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I would be recording, but maybe. Or do I have to hit this record button too?
I don't think so.
Oh, no. That's to end the recording. No.
Yeah.
Stay. Okay.
So
okay.
We'll have to do a little light editing, but that's okay.
Light.
I say we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to another episode number 10 of ATS Fully Engaged on the Rocks. I am here, your co-host, Evan, along with my two inimitable co-hosts, Tony.
Hello.
Tony, you there? Oh, okay. We didn't lose him.
Nope,
and Mitch.
Hello.
Oh, there we go. We get the creepy intros. That's my favorite.
That's the best.
So today we're here for some good old ATS action and some new ATS action with MEVO Modern. What is EVO? Modern EVO? Yeah, I guess that's not an acronym, is it?
No,
Modern
it's
EVO.
Evolution. I think
it's technically ATS EVO Modern Warfare, but I prefer MEVO.
MEVO, yeah, it's like a Pokemon. I can't take credit for that.
Yeah. Rolls off the tongue.
But before we get to MEVOing, we're on the rocks. What are we drinking, Tony?
I am drinking from Boulevard Brewing Company a whiskey barrel stout, barrel aged imperial stout. So,
hot damn.
It's starting to get warm, so the stouts are going to start being drunk. So I thought I'd take advantage of a kind of a cooler day here in sunny Northwest Ohio. Actually, it's raining right now, but anyways,
it's a good day for a stout.
Yeah, perfect day for a stout. So it is probably just as bad or as high on the alcohol content as most of what you guys are drinking. So
yeah, I was going to ask, what's the ABV on that baby?
11.8.
It's like a nice strong wine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Although let's be clear, every day is a good stout day. Just saying.
Yes, that's true.
Well, Mitch, what you got going on?
I am not on the rocks.
Oh.
I am drinking the Balvenie Doublewood Neat.
Oh, very nice.
It's classy. We're classy here.
I'll try and keep it classy. I mean, I'm holding forth at the rocks, but boring because it's the same drunk I've drank. We're not that far into the podcast yet. The same cocktail. It's just a double Negroni. Nice and simple.
Nice. Who doesn't like Negronis?
Lots of people. I mean, Andre.
Right. Well,
even Italians do.
And you would think he would like it, but whatever.
Exactly. It was pretty disappointing, but it's okay. Anyways, so I don't think we have a to-do list this time or any, I didn't do any prep work at all. Just, read some rules, did a lot of scanning.
What are we talking about again? No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I lost track already.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't think we did a whole lot of, it sounds bad. We didn't do a whole lot of planning. So you're just going to get it raw. I mean, we did a little bit of talking, but not a whole lot of talking. And honestly, probably going to rehash some of the things that you've heard or read on the Discord channel a little bit. But I thought maybe before we rolled into that, we'd get an update on Tony, if you've done any more work on the module that you had planned to work on.
I've done more research. I haven't done any more actual laying out, but I've got a lot of research done. So
Gotcha.
There is a movie that was about the battle, but it was all in Romanian. So, but you could get a visual of what actually happened with the battle, which has really helped a lot of how I'm going to design the scenarios. The one thing I have decided is that I think I'm going to do kind of like the way Andre's modules, where they were kind of more of scenario maps instead of one big gigantic map, but doing it maybe one panel map that can have like 2 scenarios on it, and then maybe like a 2 or 3 panel map with the larger scenarios on it. But I'm going to try to keep them onto more of a smaller footprint because I think I enjoy that when I play those scenarios because I like this. I can see everything, and so
Right.
that's kind of a decision that I have made on that. So,
Cool.
and there may be some new particular rules just for the module, which some help to the um, Romanians for sighting their. I think Mitch, we kind of talked about it. It's like you do like a bore sighting, so
Bore
it's kind of
sighting,
like yeah. So like when you do like a artillery offboard artillery, and you have a signature hex.
Mm-hmm.
The similar idea, but still played around with that. So
kind of like a
but yeah,
pre-placed
it's
spot.
this. Yep, exactly. So which would make sense if you're setting up a defense and they know exactly where to hit at.
Right.
The goal is to have it done secretly, so the other side doesn't know
Right.
where those are sighted to avoid them. So it'll be kind of a fun scenario. I think a couple fun scenarios with that.
Nice. Yeah. So if you're wondering what we're talking about, go back and listen to episode 9 because Tony talked about it at length there. So anyway, any other things we need to clear the decks with?
You guys been playing any ATS?
Well, me and Mitch
MEVO.
played face to face. Well, me
Oh,
and Mitch
that's
played
right.
face to face.
I forgot
You
about
actually
that. Yeah, we did.
tell me about that game because I mean,
go ahead,
we
Tony.
talked a little bit, but not in depth. I want to hear.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun, actually. So,
That's the I messed up the setup. That was that.
No.
That's how that begins. Oh no,
Yeah.
okay.
No, there was no setup. It wasn't a mess up setup. I just went guns blazing, kind of like I do. So I got a little overzealous on moving my tanks in, but it was an all tank scenario or armored vehicle scenario. So it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of shooting and blowing things up, and I took some. He took some of mine out. I took some of him out. Ultimately, he took a few more of mine out. But it was a lot of fun, though. It was quick. We were done probably about an hour.
Yeah. I mean, if it was even that, probably. I mean, with setup and everything. Although setup wasn't bad because it's 6 AFVs on each side, and
and you're coming in from one side, I'm coming in from the other side, and
kind of
it's like a meeting engagement. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, when you guys mentioned the scenario, the few details I had, it sounded really cool. I think in spite of, I feel like most people end up playing a lot of infantry in ATS, but the game is actually great when it's even just it's all vehicles like Tobruk.
Yeah, the vehicles are fun to play, and it's a easier system. And I think it's pretty easy for that level tactical when it's a one-on-one. It's pretty easy, and I really enjoy it. It's just a lot of fun, and it's pretty intuitive. Once you do it once or twice, you're good to go. You know exactly. It's the same thing over. Just hoping for some better odds at hitting. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it was roving panzers. It was the number 4 scenario from Hot Stove 1, not the old Hot Stove pack.
Yeah,
the new Hot Stove.
Hot Stove 1, right?
Which has Hot Stove.
Oh wait,
map 2 uses Hot Stove.
Yes.
2.
So Hot Stove 1, and we're going to get into this at some point when I do a Battlefield walk around. Hot Stove 1 comes with the Hot Stove 2 map for whatever reason.
That makes sense. Wait, does Hot Stove 2 also come with the same Hot Stove 2 map?
No.
Wait, oh no. So you're saying
no.
Hot Stove 1 uses them?
Now I'm confused. Yeah, I'm going to have to go back and look at it. I remember I took the notes, and
we all confused.
It's saved. We'll save that for the Battlefield.
The only thing I can say is
it was
The only thing I can say is that there was an original Hot Stove, and it was an HS1 map. Yeah, pack.
Okay.
So they redid it. It's a brand new module.
They did not redo. Right. It's not a reprint of Hot Stove Pack 1.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a brand new Hot Stove 1 that apparently comes with Hot Stove 2 map. But whatever.
I hadn't made the connection that the originals were Hot Stove packs and the new ones are just Hot Stoves.
Correct. So there's HSP
and HS.
HS. Right.
I feel enlightened now.
Yes. So anyway, but it's 5 tanks on the German side. Two tanks and 4 half tracks, and then on the Russians they get two T-34s, an armored car, and a couple of other really light vehicles. So it was an interesting scenario, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, it ended up becoming a cat and mouse fight in the village. So if you've ever seen the HS2 map, it's a big village right in the middle. With a bunch of roads through it, and hex side roads, and you're just kind of chasing each other around, trying to get the rear/flank shot on each other. And
Right, because most of the, I mean, I guess so. Most of the vehicles on both sides can't actually eliminate the good vehicles on the other side without getting some lucky rolls or some
right,
some
because
rear
I mean the
shots.
big tanks, that's T-34s on Panzer threes, so
Okay,
canonical Eastern Front, right?
classic baby, classic.
Mm-hmm. Classic.
Yeah, it was a lot of
cats.
fun, and it
Classic
was fun
ATS.
rolling dice
Cats.
and not having to hit a button and stuff like that. So.
Right, exactly. It was good.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah.
So yeah, I forgot we had played that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think
It was a
that's the
little
only
late
ATS I've
that
played
night.
recently. Yeah, it was right. So how about you?
Well,
Have
I
any
think-
ATS?
Oh God, I wish.
Yeah.
Just gotta get MEVO set up here as soon as I can. So we can. I feel like we should forewarn people that if you thought our last Evo hot take podcast was loosey goosey and we didn't play and we were talking out of our
Wait till you
asses,
get to this one.
yeah, but you better buckle up. It ain't getting any better.
Well, now in my defense, I did
You
push
actually did
counters
push the
around
counters. I see what we saw.
infantry wise, and I did push the
Yeah.
counters around. Although I still haven't gotten back to the tanks after the first turn, but enough to get a feel for it. But yeah, I pushed counters around a little bit, so we've got some to talk about. But and like I told you, Evan, and maybe you, Tony, I didn't want to bite off everything at once, so I did. Okay, here's all infantry. I kind of did a made up. Here's all tanks, and then we'll start throwing in some guns and some UAVs, and then some artillery, or maybe some other order or mix in there as we get through it. But and not to drop a bomb on everybody, but Scott Eagles did let me know that it's okay to tell people that he is working on a yet to be named modern EVO ATS vessel module. No ETA on that, nothing like that. But he's got the components and he's working on it. So hopefully we'll see that soon.
That's the big thing. If he has the components,
yes, correct. He does have the components, so he's got a real life. So it might take a while, but know that you'll be pushing virtual M1s around against virtual T90s at some point.
Yeah, which is pretty exciting.
Right.
Well, and as we've I mean, let's just jump in right here. Why not? I think it'll definitely be good to have VATS for Evo because the maps themselves are like normal map panels or whatever, the small map panels, but the hexes are enormous.
Yes.
So to use the engagement ranges,
yeah,
you'll need some big ass maps.
Well, which is interesting though. I mean, the biggest scenario I saw had. Well, let's rewind a little bit. So when it says in a scenario that you use 4 maps, it really means 4 map panels, right? So 4 of the whatever they are, 11 by 18, 11, whatever they are, right? It's not like in some of the other ones where it's 4 map panels as one map and 4 map panels as another map. When it says 4 maps, it really means 4 map panels. So that said, the largest scenario I saw was 6 map panels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and they were the long and short, right? So not super long.
A rectangle, if you will.
Yes.
Well, I guess a long one would be a rectangle as well.
Right. I mean, there was one that was
like really long, like five in a row.
3 or 4 or 5, in a row. Yeah. So you might get some long range shot, but the problem is there's always terrain in the way, right? So you're not. Right. You might have a missile in there that has an 80 hex range. You're never going to use that. But,
right.
But yeah, I mean, well, so speaking of maps, I did do a little bit of analysis. So just so you know, and Tony and I were talking about it a little bit before we started. So right now, the only thing available, there's modern MEVO, what's it called MEVO 1, 2, 3, and 4. Technically, they're not all available because some of them were sold out. Although Ray did announce that they're going to do a little miniature print run on them.
They're back up. They're back up on the website.
Yeah, they're back up on the website. But they're not in stock, right? So you're gonna have to wait.
Right, you have to wait
stuff printed,
potentially a while
till they get it printed. But you will be able to. You can order it, and you will be able to get it. That said, when I did the kind of a quick, back of the napkin kind of analysis, so MEVO 1 does obviously if you haven't looked at the modules yet, MEVO 1 is US, MEVO 2 is Russian. So clearly, if you buy MEVO 1, you're not going to do anything unless you're playing US versus US, right?
Yeah.
So you got to have at least the
blue.
first two, right? To do,
Well,
to
you
do
could. I
anything at
mean,
all.
you know,
You
might be
could,
like training scenarios, I guess.
correct, right? And all 12 scenarios in the first two only use the maps in the first two, which is cool, right?
Yeah, the first two are self-contained, except for there's one scenario in
Except
two that uses
for
Ukrainians.
correct. Yeah, there's one scenario that uses Ukrainians, which is actually module 3, right?
Right.
And then
But,
so
okay,
then
so
yeah,
you get 11 scenarios.
Yep.
So everything's self-contained. Just
right.
one
With the
scenario.
two modules, you could play 11 scenarios, and obviously you can do your own, right? You've got at that point you've got 8 map panels, and a bunch of counters because module 1 comes with the small and the large markers that you need to play. Although you can also order those separately. From what I've seen so far, I haven't run out of anything, but then again, I'm not really playing. You know what I mean?
Like
so
big scenarios,
right? You may end up having to buy another set of one of those marker sheets. But yeah, that's available on the website as far as.
And a lot of the markers are the same. I mean, there's Evo specific ones, but
there are. Yeah,
you can squint and replace.
Yeah, and you could right. I mean, I was using so there were assault and crawling, and so running has become rushing for whatever reason. But it doesn't really matter. You could always mark it however you really want to mark it. You could use the movement markers from ATS and be just fine. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, the one thing we didn't mention, I don't think we mentioned, is that the maps are geomorphic.
They are. So those 8 maps you can put into. I mean, obviously the scenarios put them in a specific configuration, but if you make something up like I did for that meat engagement with the tanks that I was pushing stuff around, I just threw a couple maps together, right? Just to have something to play on. So.
It looks like there's a lot
of
the
maps go together.
A lot of city maps, a lot of urban, at least in the later ones. So we'll see how it goes again with that. Yeah, I haven't taken a lot.
I've got them.
Yeah, the tank range. I mean, the longest shot I've taken with tanks so far has been 8 hexes, right? Which is
like a normal range.
Basically point blank, right? I mean, both the M1 and the T90, I think hit on a 99 at that range. So
I'll tell you what, the EV3 map is all wide open. So.
Right.
The earlier ones I think are more open. The later, the Ukraine and the Belarus ones, I think are more.
I haven't really done an analysis of the maps, but yeah.
Right, but unless that clear one's right in the middle, you're
not getting your 80 hex range.
That's true, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and
anyway.
But we're going to see...
That was the thing about body range. There is none. There is no range anymore.
Nope.
So that was...
Modern sensors, baby.
Interesting. Yep.
If you can be seen, you can be shot at.
Booyah.
So, I mean, I guess to carry on. So, MEVO 3 is the Ukrainians, which obviously probably a lot of people have on their mind at the moment. And then MEVO 4 is the Belarus and the LPR. What is it?
DPR.
Yeah, DPR. The two pseudo republics, if you want to call them that.
Separatists,
whatever you want to call them, right? Which I highly doubt they're actually republics, but whatever.
Just like the Democratic Republic of Korea, Socialist Republic. It's a democratic republic. You didn't read the propaganda?
Yeah, I know. And then Evan, I think you pointed out that one doesn't come with any AFV cards or anything because obviously they're using all the AFVs that are already in the other modules. So that could be problematic if that's the only one you get. So,
I don't think anyone's just going for the Belarusians, but I mean, maybe you should be forewarned.
Well, I'm saying, yeah, if you see, I think the Ukrainian one's all Ukrainian, but I think the Belarus DPR LP, they all use the Russian stuff.
Yeah,
for the most part, I didn't really take too much of a look. But also that fourth module has 8 scenarios rather than 6, which is good. Or was it 10?
10.
Yeah, it's 10 scenarios. Sorry, 10 scenarios instead of the 6 that come in the other ones, and it's really kind of across the board with 1, 2, and 3, and obviously 4. So.
Okay, and it has a couple of quote historical scenarios. It's got at least one that was from 2014, which is cool.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Because obviously Ukraine and LPR/DPR or whatever has been simmering since 2014. So.
Yeah.
Simmering over.
So there are some technically. Yeah, there are some technically you could do some Ukrainian Russian historical scenarios too because of the 2014.
Right. So, but like Tony and I were talking a little bit earlier, is you could with 1, 2, and 3, you can play everything from 1, 2, and 3. Right, you don't need 4 to do anything that's in 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
Which is also nice. Now, what we were talking about those, so the next set is 5, 6, 7, 8, which is I forget the order of the Baltics, but it's the Baltics first and Poland is 8th, which is really weird. But I'm assuming that those are all going to use scenarios. I'm sorry, all probably going to use at least one or more maps from the previous 4, and more than likely you're going to need Belarus for the Polish ones, maybe the Lithuanian one, but definitely the Russians to go for Estonia and Latvia. That's my guess, right?
Yeah, that sounds. Yeah, and we'll see how much you need the Americans. I mean, maybe.
Well, right. So the Americans will probably show up in any and all of those, I'm sure.
Right. And that hopefully they'll be. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter at that point, right? I mean, it doesn't really matter if there's scenarios that have. Because normally, I'm thinking in terms of GWATs when I've considered getting into GWATs. Right. And like, okay, so I don't need to play every single scenario. If there's at least 2 or 3 that you can play that just use the maps from this one, cool. But in this case, it's like because of the OP4 is always going to be from the first couple modules. It's never really going to you're never going to get just Poland. Like that you're not going to be able to play. So I guess it doesn't really matter.
If you want more info on GWATs, you need to go to the expert, Mark.
he's gonna be on. Sorry, Mark.
Although he's neck deep in the MEVO stuff too.
Yeah, he's pretty excited about MEVO too. So, well, and the other thing too, I'm kind of curious about is I almost wish the Poland and the Baltics ones, since they're gonna have so many more maps by that point. They would have some other, not necessarily Polish, Lithuanian, Latvian, or Estonian scenarios, because you could take advantage of all those extra geomorphic maps to make some cool Ukrainian, Russian scenarios or whatever.
Right. Well, and not to talk about stuff that's not even out, but I am a little surprised that the Baltics each got their own. Because their armies, A, aren't that big. B, they use all the same equipment as everybody else. So, you could have probably had Baltic states as one module, Poland as a module, and then you could have had Germany or Romania or whatever, right? So that kind of baffles me a little bit, but it is what it is. I'm not about it now. So
yeah, well, those are all the same price as the Ukraine and Belarus, which I think are the same price. Were they all the same price?
I think so. So I'm assuming you're going to get maps and counters, right? Because I'm sure everybody's going to get their own counter set.
Right.
Well, maybe that's why they did.
The Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania right now are running half the price.
Okay.
I don't know if that's because they're on special still.
Well, probably. Well, it probably is because could be, but my guess would be because they're just counters and maps, right? There's no AFV cards because all the AFV cards are already in something else.
We'll just pull it, but does Poland not have anything? I guess it'll be.
It's either Russian or American.
Okay, yeah, that's funny.
So right, I mean they just gave up all their Russian-made tanks because we're going to ship them M1s, right? So
yeah, Latvia does have one AFV,
right, and so that'll be the interesting thing because I know some of them.
Oh, like their own national AFV. That's
right.
Home.
So,
okay,
so there may be one or two of those in there, right? So and it's a wait and see, right? We'll see when they come out because of course, being suckers, I'm sure we all ordered them. Well, I ordered them all, but
I ordered them first weekend,
right.
But I think, and Ray, or if you're listening, we would all love lots of scenarios, not just
right,
putative Estonian, Estonian on Belarusian scenarios or whatever,
right? Or just more details on what's actually in there.
Yeah. So speaking of which, what's actually in there? We haven't. Gotten to the hash down. That's not a real word.
It is now. ATSFE point hash down.
We're going to do a hash down.
Here's the easy thing. What comes in the module number 1? Hey, just go to our YouTube website.
That's true.
Damn.
Now, we haven't done...
It's like Tony paid him.
I don't think you guys have done.
Cue that
up. I was excited when I got these. These are... I looked at them and I was like, okay, I got to at least get one of them up on there. So I got the Americans because that's actually, you get kind of the base of everything you need in that first module. So
somebody else might have to do the Russians because I already cut some Russian counters out. I'm just saying.
I'll do the Russians. I can do a silly a silly Russian intro.
There you go.
Accent.
But yeah, so all kidding aside, Tony did put the Module 1 US Battlefield walk around out, so you can see what, and that's the big one, right? That's got the markers and, and some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah,
and Chapter M, the actual
Chapter M,
yeah,
which we're going to talk about, right?
Yes. So. Important. Yeah. I guess that you couldn't really play any of them if you don't have the first one.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if you just wanted to.
Right. And on that note, maybe that's what you were headed for, Evan, is 1 and 2 have so only Module 1 has Chapter M. Very important. Only Module 1 has Chapter M. But Module 1 and 2 both have charts. But there's a huge caveat. Module 1 has for the most part they're identical, except that Module 1 has the U.S. automatic weapon. What am I thinking of? Heavy machine guns, right? In Module 2 has the Russian machine guns. And different ranges with different gunfire factors. So you kind of need both to know what you're shooting at what range. So
right. Is that the only difference? Yeah, I guess that is.
On that chart, I think it's the only difference.
Well, there's some guided munition. Oh, no, but that comes in.
Yeah, the rest
the grenade launchers as well.
Oh, yeah, sorry. You're right. Yeah, automatic grenade launchers and the slung under grenade launchers. So M203 for the US, and I don't know what the Russian one is, but
the GP25.
There you go.
Apparently,
you knew what it was, right?
Well, I'm looking at the chart. Damn it!
You
come on, come on.
Just take credit. Come on.
I know some stuff, but not that much stuff.
Yeah, other than that, it's pretty much the same, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. So
we should talk. We'll talk a little bit about that too, I think. But like if you watch Tony's video, what else comes with the AFV cards, or if you're used to the CATs, classic ATS cards, these are slightly larger.
Again, buckle up.
Yeah, it's a full 8.5. A vehicle is a full 8.5 by 11 page with
impressive.
Shit ton of data on it. Oh, it is absolutely.
It's impressive.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, not to mention the charts of all the indirect fire possibilities, all the different weapons and ranges and ammo types.
Right. Yeah. So and it goes on and on and on. Right. I mean,
yeah.
There's an indirect fire table. There's I can't remember if it's called guided missile or ATGM table or whatever for the, javelins and laws and whatever they are.
Yeah, there's a missile. Yeah, there's a missile chart. Yeah.
The Russians and Belarusians have like a two-sided one. It's like they got 2 full pages of missile stats.
Right. Well, they never throw anything away.
Missile,
so
NATO missile has the M220, Javelin, M136, M72 Law, Stinger, Law. Yeah, so they've got quite a bit there.
Right. That's okay. The U.S. makes up for it in 52 variations of the Humvee. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Hey, we've got Apaches in here, which is pretty sweet. I'm surprised we don't have some A10s like that kind of bump.
Yeah.
Oh,
so that actually, I was going to talk about that. Is I found that interesting that the air support is quote unquote missing right now. Right.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that.
I'm sure it will come later, based on some of the emails that I think you got from Ray, Evan. So to be clear, we've been probably annoying the shit out of Ray a little bit with constant barrage of questions. But one of the things I think he said is that it's still a work in progress, which okay, but I think they deliberately chose to leave air support out for now and work that in later, right? So, but helicopters are there, although there are no scenarios with helicopters. But that's okay.
Well, I mean,
you got counters and you got rules, so
exactly. It's like, well, okay. So two things. First, air. I mean, in CATs, I think I've done an airstrike maybe once, maybe. Like, and I went out of my way just to try it.
Right. I think there's a video out there on
there
airstrikes.
Yeah, there is. I don't know who did that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Great service to the world. but yeah. So I mean, I think obviously in the modern battlefield, they're much more common than World War II. But I can live with, like, not every battle needs to have an airstrike happen during it. And as for the do it yourself nature, I think some of two minds. On the one hand, I'd like a little bit maybe tighter rules, or not tighter. I don't mind tightening up a little bit, but make sure it's all there, it's all thought out.
Right. Because we have questions and thoughts.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I would have taken a advanced copy of the rules and went through them and been like, okay, this is how this is supposed to work, and etc. But
Right.
but as for the do-it-yourself nature, I mean that's kind of what Evo is more about, and I think we see that a lot more
Absolutely.
with this one than with the basic game Evo from World War II, which was
Yeah. No. Go ahead. Weevo. I liked it. It was
Weevo.
Weevo.
Sorry, Weevo.
Which really should be what it's a Vivo, but whatever.
Evo.
To Evo.
It's too much.
Yeah.
I can't.
Too much. Yeah. I still like cats, but
Yes, cats I do like. Classic ATS, I like it.
Cats, MEVO, and Weevo, they all have kind of cat feline aspects.
Exactly.
But yeah, with World War II, and one thing too is there were like the data cards for the Sherman. That was almost it, and then some of the like a few guns and like Panzer trucks. But it's so much more. So many more vehicles and so many more stats with the modern systems and the amount that is included. So and they're not built as basic games like the Weevo ones were. So I think it's kind of assumed that okay, you've got geoboards, you've got a shit ton of cards and stats and charts. Like it's kind of expected you're going to go to town. Like there are scenarios included, of course, but
sure.
I don't think the expectation is necessarily like like an Omaha Beach where you're going to have the whole package and just play it, and you're not going to make up. Most people are going to make up their own scenarios or whatever.
Well, and like we relatively generic counters, right? It's a counter with a vehicle and an ID on it, and no stats because the stats are all on the charts. Nothing is on the counter except an ID and like for the soldier counters, a weapon system. So M4, M16, AK-47.
Exactly.
Right.
So yeah, I think. Oh man, I totally lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have drank that Negroni so fast.
Well, you did have two because it was a
double. Hey, I didn't have to go back and make another one and interrupt the podcast. That would have been a catastrophe.
So at about 5 o'clock today, I went upstairs and grabbed the bottle of Balvenie and brought it down to my desk just so I'd have it. Just going to make another one.
Just looking at it. Good times.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think there's a certain degree to which. Oh, okay. That was the last thing. The last point I wanted to make on this front was that there's a columns on the MRLSs, the multiple rocket launcher systems for the Russians. They have columns for chemical weapons and nuclear weapons, and that's not applicable in an ATS game, but it's there because
they have it.
Because they have it, right? And it's Ray goes on a lot in the emails about the data, and I think in a much bigger way than Weevo, the data really kind of shines on its own. In some sense, you're paying for the data in as much as
Oh, absolutely, I agree. Yeah.
So it's all there. You have it. It's free to do. You can in real world, not real world terms, translating the real world terms into ATS terms, which are more understandable to us, the lay war gamer. If you're not a ballistics scientist or whatever. So
yeah. The only thing I completely agree with everything you said. The only thing I wish if they were going to position it as DIY, which I'm on board with, fully on board, right? Is some kind of guidance around point value kind of stuff. Just so look, if you put 3 T90s down and 3 M1s down, expect X, right? Expect the M1s to mop them up, or expect the T90s, whatever, right? However you want to fall on that particular side is what should you do? How many troops do you need to make it an interesting scenario?
Oh, geez, yeah.
Understanding that some of it is not necessarily about that, right? But
that's also a weakness of a point-buy system is the setup of the scenario.
Well, sure, right. Set up the scenario, the terrain, the valid,
Well, we're gonna run into some issues with with MEVO is the ammo types, because there's a huge amount of ammo types, so there can be a pretty big discrepancy depending on what you pick. So that you would almost have to give the different ammo loadouts you could possibly do in your helos and AFEs, different point values.
If you're going to count it.
I would count it. I think you
Right.
got to count it.
So like, because one of the things, it didn't have anything to do with like vehicle loadouts or anything, but I asked Ray, I'm like, well, I noticed when I was playing the infantry scenario that the Russians come equipped with RPG-7s. That's great, fine. You go to the Russian chart that shows all the rocket propelled grenades and missiles and blah blah blah. And there are 2 rows for the RPG-7. There's the RPG-7 and the RPG. What is it? RPG-7A or whatever the upgraded version is, right? So I asked him, well, which one do they have? He's like, well, you choose. So when you're playing the scenario, you choose. Oh, sorry, they have a PG-7VL and a PG-7VR with slightly different ranges and slightly different PKs depending on what you're using. But he's like, you choose, right? So when you're playing the scenario, you say, hey, I'm going to be these guys. Well, what would be really bad is these guys are going to have the one and these guys are going to have the other. Now you got to keep track. Right? There's no easy way to do that because the counter just says RPG-7. Or you could just say, well, they're all armed with Type 1 or Type 2, whatever, right?
But well, the counters are numbered, right? I think even the weapon counters are numbered.
They are. Yeah, I'm just saying you'll have to write it down somewhere when you go to fire it. You'll have to reference it. You'll have to, and I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's the way it is. So,
right. Well, and yeah, I mean, there's actually a distinct point in the rules where they do mention that the weapon loadouts are up to you. You can choose in this first edition. So I again, with the do-it-yourself nature, but also for later scenarios, I can definitely see like the loadouts being made much more specific. And same thing with the morale, which we had talked about a little bit, Tony. That the morale is just automatic grade C, which isn't a lot of variation.
By the way,
default is grade C.
Right, but I didn't see a lot of scenarios where they
were not. I think
there were a couple.
Yeah, I think I saw one where like one side was an E or an F or whatever it was, and yeah.
The problem was that's not listed in the rules anywhere.
It's on the charts.
Yeah, it's on the chart.
Yeah, that should be in the rules.
Yeah, I thought there was like a parenthetical listing somewhere, but I couldn't find it.
It lists all the grades, but I didn't see where it said. And again, I've gone through the rules just a few times now, so it could
it listed all the grades, but only in terms of there's a dial modifier for this, and there's a dial modifier for this, but it doesn't really talk about it.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, it's classic critical hit is. We're going to give you some information, and we expect you, the gamer, to figure out some of the stuff. Although, the question is there too much for us to figure out? Because all you're really getting is a barrage of questions. But whatever.
Well, let's talk about the rules because I think. Some of it too is there's obviously learning curve of how long it takes us to internalize or read through everything.
I was just going to say, Evan, before you move on, is there anything else we need to mention about the charts or the components that we're not going to touch on the rules? I'm trying to think, and I don't really think there are. I mean, you get like we said, you get a bunch of 8.5 by 11 vehicle cards. You get a bunch of indirect fire OBA tables. We'll talk about all that stuff that works, but missile charts and everything else. I mean, you get a lot of stuff in there. There's no doubt about it. You know what? I do think I want to mention one thing, which we'll talk about, I think, as part of the rules. But you do get this thing called the multiple hit tables. Which is a very interesting construct in terms of the rate of fire stuff in the rules has changed. But I think we'll get into that when we talk about the rules. But
I mean, we're here. Let's do it now. I kind of decided, I think, in MEVO to just ignore it because it was like, you just roll. Really? I'd rather just roll anyways. Yeah, because I mean, if it's not like 40 hits, my understanding is in the original Tobruk, there were like some anti-aircraft guns that had, because I think it was more like this, where you have really much higher rates of fire, but much less likely to, your every single shot. Because in cats, you're firing one shot, but it's not really one shot. It's representing multiple shots.
Right.
Where I think in Evo in both, it's you're doing more of a 1-to-1, and I think in Tobruk maybe even more so. I don't know. It's like a complete 1-to-1 of shots to rolls.
I'm going to read one stat to you, and you tell me if you still feel that way.
Okay.
So the Mi-28 30 millimeter cannon, its initial ROF is 50. How many times do you want to roll?
Well, what's its acquired?
Ask the answer.
It doesn't have. Here's the funny thing. It doesn't have
it,
an acquired because it's got 50 on the initial.
Yeah,
But so here's the funny thing: is right. Even on the MHT, that means you're rolling on the 10 shot one five
times. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So
no 25. No, five times. There's a 10
times. Yeah. So I mean, you're still getting up in the crazy numbers. Now, obviously, that's most. I think most tanks are like, I don't know,
like 8 for their
maybe
4 and 8. Exactly.
So do you want to roll? Do you want to roll 8 times to see if each one hits, or do you just want to roll on the 8 shot table and apply the modifiers? And
well,
I don't know, right?
The one I would probably for 4. Well, okay, so I don't know. In practice, I'd have to see
maybe we should roll back just a little bit. So every vehicle comes with 2 rates of fire, basically. And there's an open question whether bots double that, but I think the acquisition takes the place of the bot.
I think
which actually makes more sense. So anyway, you have your initial rate of fire just like in ATS. Now in ATS it's 1, right? When you get a bot, you double your initial rate, usually to double, right? Whatever. So if you were 1, now you're 2. Most of the vehicles here, their initial rate of fire is 4 or whatever. Maybe it's 3, maybe it's 6. Who knows, right? And then the acquired. So if you hit the first time, the next time you shoot the same target. Now you're most of the time doubled. So maybe your initial rate of fire was 4. Your acquired rate of fire is now 8. So if you fire the same target, you're going to either, and so what we're talking about with the multiple hit table, you have a choice, and this is what Evan is talking about. You have a choice. You can roll 8 times and apply the modifiers each time to see if you hit. Or you can figure out what your initial PK is based on there's data on the card, and you find the row that matches that on the 8-shot multiple hit table. You make a roll, apply all your modifiers, and then depending on where you land within that row is you hit anywhere from 0 to 8 times, right? But then you still roll for each. So say you hit 6 times out of the 8, you're going to roll for hit location, damage, blah blah blah.
Oh, Jesus!
6 times.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's a lot.
Right. So 6 and 1/2 dozen the other. I think at that point, but
well, yeah, you maybe I'm going to invest in some a bunch of 10-sided die with 3 of each with the same color, so that way you can just roll. Say you get 6 hits. Then you just roll,
right?
I don't know, 12 dice, so 6 for hit location, or I guess it'd be 18 dice.
You'd have to know which hit location goes with which hit, right? So
no, well, that's why you use the color, but that doesn't actually work because you need the 1s and the 10s, so you couldn't have the same color for the 3.
Right, exactly.
and that's what I was going to say before. So I was a little like, oh yeah, for 8 that's not so bad, but it's the problem is it's not 8. It's 16 dice because you have to roll D10. Well, yeah, that makes it less appealing,
right? Which obviously is why they came up with the MHC. Now, I am not a statistician. I have no idea if the numbers make any sense at all in terms of, if my to hit is 99 at this range and I'm rolling on the 10 to hit, is this really the breakdown of hits? I no clue, right? Somebody smarter than I am can do that, but it probably is a game speeder upper, right?
Are you gonna hash that down, Mitch, or what?
Yep, that's a hash down.
That's a hash down. It's the biggest hash down I've ever seen.
Right. So anyway,
I think it's definitely
the MHT.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, certainly in concept, to have that. You want to have actual 1-to-1 ratio of shots to rolls, unlike in cats, more like in Tobruk. That's a way to make it not insane, because ATS, of course, was to make Tobruk more manageable and more reasonable.
Right.
So then to try and go back the other way to get more resolution, you got to find some kind of middle ground. So I think that's what that's for. Lovely.
All right. Should we dive into the rules then?
We're here.
We can start at least.
I mean, we've already talked about some of the rules, but yeah. Yeah, we're 44 minutes in. As Tom, Jesus Christ, as Tony said, he's Cinderella. He's got to get some beauty sleep. So
I got to get up probably earlier than Tony, and even on the same, even with the time change.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be a fun day tomorrow.
So Chapter M has
page 1,
12 pages of rules, and
the last 2 are like.
No, 12 pages of rules and 2 pages of headings key, which you could probably just burn because it's not really that useful.
It's not hard to find.
Doesn't help.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like an index. It's just, here's all the headings. Okay, well, if I knew what I was looking for, I wouldn't
Yeah, I don't know why that was at the
heading
beginning, but
anyway.
that's fine. Oh, I guess they do have an order, a table of contents at the beginning.
They do, right? So, and that's I found that to be far more useful, right?
Yeah.
And I guess the first thing we should probably say is it's very clear that the Chapter M is an expansion of ATS 2014. So your 4.x rulebook, whichever version you happen to have, is the primary rules you're going to use as modified by Chapter M. Correct. Which there are lots of modifications. So anyway.
Yeah. So I mean, okay, so that's let's just
go ahead.
Let's dive in. Well, so my overall impression is that I like this more than MEVO. It feels more like cogent as a system. Now, I must put forth several large caveats. One is, well, I thought there were three when I was thinking about this in my head, but I can only remember two, so we'll go with two. One is that I'm definitely wearing some rose tinted glasses because this is modern.
It's the wheelhouse.
Yeah, it's exciting. So that definitely influences, and there's also we've already experienced MEVO, so we kind of have already
right.
Our defenses are down for what's in some sense. So we're like, oh yeah, I've seen this before. This is like a thing I've already read once in a book, so it must be
right.
Which isn't necessarily the case. But I think and maybe it's just a trick. That's also, I guess that's a third thing. It might also just be a trick in my mind, like the fact that there are fire teams going upright and prone instead of squads feels different, but maybe it's really just the same thing. But it feels different in my mind. Which actually might have some validity to it, because part of the problem I found with MEVO was differentiating between cats and the new rule system and kind of keeping them straight in my head, where this feels a little bit easier to kind of, okay, this works this way and cats works this way. And I'm sure there'll be lots of little things that'll be hard to remember the details and distinguishing them, but it feels, I don't know, for whatever reason, and again, it could just be being used to it because we've already seen it before. But it feels a little bit easier to kind of just keep track in my head. Like I know there's pinned and breaking, and there's no. Well, okay, that's.
We'll get to that, right?
Yeah.
You say, let's do general, and then let's talk about specifics.
Yeah. So, and again, I think there's definitely an element of that, an element of just being used to it, but. I don't know, and maybe the rules are tight. I haven't looked at I don't think I've looked at the MEVO rules since we probably did the last podcast.
Right. If you want to hear about that, listener, go back and find the
number 3.
Right.
I think it's number 3.
Shit, I don't remember.
I think it's number 3. Pretty sure. To go look.
Way back when.
Yeah, exactly. A long time ago, 7 podcasts ago, which is with our monthly ATS podcast was 27 months ago.
That's right. I forgot you count time differently.
Yeah, exactly. Panamanian months.
That's right.
But yeah, so I don't remember, but it does feel a little bit easier to kind of keep some of the rules grouped. I mean, there are little differences that are going to be very difficult to remember,
except for the one. But yeah.
Oh, well, sure.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I would say I agree with that. I mean, it feels, and again, I don't know if that's like you said, it's hangover from MEVO, right? But it does feel a little bit more cohesive. Like, and it's going to sound bad when I say this, but it's like almost like they put a little bit more thought into how do we organize this to make sure that it's clear. This is different. This is this. This is that.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
As opposed to MEVO, which kind of felt like they just threw it all into the rules that came with it, and you're like, we'll see what sticks, right?
Yeah, and you really had to dig in to figure out the differences. Where for example, like take melee. Melee is like very clearly different, and I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's like very clear. You just have one round of melee, and that's it. And there's exactly. I'm curious to see how it works.
Yeah.
But regardless, whether it works better or worse, or it's whatever. At least it's easy to play and to remember, keep track in your head. Okay, this is how EVO works. This is how Cats works, and you can play each and not get them super confused, and kind of make that comparison to be like, okay, I like this part of this model and this part of this other model better, or whatever.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. Tony, any general comments?
No, just there's my initial feeling is that there's definitely a few things that are related to the other 3 letter tactical system that's out there. A couple of overall things that I'm like, ooh, that sounds like this, but
You mean like one round of melee?
yeah, that's particularly one of the ones that I thought was, and now there's purple markers. Like what? there's text, there's purple text markers, but I mean, anyways. But yeah, the one round of melee, actually, I was kind of bummed with that because that was one thing I really really liked with cats was when you went into hand to hand combat, it wasn't over until it was over. It was
Right.
over. You got it done and over with. There's not like any.
Right.
Well, if I don't roll well enough, it's going to continue on. Because I don't know. Depending on how many hits, how many units, it could take a whole scenario to get
Right.
through. That. So I'm
Right.
just. I
Yeah,
don't
and
wanna, like,
I don't know if that changes a scale change, a conscious scale change. So, are they saying that the time slices in MEVO are shorter?
Well,
Right. So you're not going to finish the
yes.
melee, right? So
Yes. I mean, the conclusion for Evo in general has
right.
generally been towards more compression of time, and your assault marker doesn't stick, or assault movement marker doesn't stick around. You only get it during opportunity fire.
Correct.
And all that. More hyper detailed resolution, which is, I think, is good because there's like kind of a thematic theme. That's
Right.
not tying it together.
Right.
The problem is, like, the scenarios aren't longer and the map scale didn't change. So I'm not. That might.
Right.
It may or may not come together.
I
think in the case with melee, I mean, there's also lots of questions that come up. I mean, it might work with fire. It might make sense also with fire teams being smaller and, again, compressing size and resolution down. Well, yeah, pop that cork, baby. Do it,
that, babe. It's almost empty. We can't have that happening. So here's the funny thing. So I honestly, I grabbed the bottle of Belvini because I recently read an article that said, "Hey, you know what? When you open a bottle of liquor, it doesn't last forever. That's when it starts to, quote unquote, go bad." Right? and they're like, you may not have a bad experience. It may not, be any less potent or anything, but the taste will change because it's been exposed there. I'm like, well, that bottle's only got about an eighth of a sixth of a bottle left. I better bring that downstairs and drink it. So this baby's going down tonight. Maybe.
Well, shoot. Speaking of time scale, I mean, damn, what's the time frame on this? I mean, if it tastes worse after like a week, you don't want to let it last a week.
So that's the funny thing. So the higher ABV and the more potent. So like a Scotch will last longer, a whiskey, a bourbon will last longer than, say, a liqueur, right?
Right.
Well, according to this article, which I don't even remember who freaking wrote it, but I'm like, whatever. Any excuse I need to go through the liquor faster is fine.
Yeah, it's like that's a dangerous thing to put out there.
Right, exactly. So, yeah. So Lori, my wife, was like, "Wow, we should cut down on the number of bottles we open." I said, "No, baby, you don't understand. No. You just drink it faster." Anyway,
she totally missed the point.
Exactly. Compression of time. So, what? Although you brought up an interesting point that I don't want to lose track of is that, and maybe we didn't mention it before, is that the unit of maneuver in CATS, classic ATS, we'll have to say that like 50 times, make sure it sticks, is the squad, right? Well, in MEVO, modern EVO, ATS, whatever, MEVO, it's the fire team. So it's a 4-man team. Well, 4-person because, whatever. But
okay, watch your pronouns.
I know we're going to get canceled for that. 4-person team armed with whatever weapon they happen to be armed with, and you can break them down at any point in time. So that mechanic has changed, right? If you have a 4-person fire team, if you want to break one person off to go throw smoke and the other 3 are going to fire, you can do that in any order you want, right?
That's cool. I like the flexibility.
That's
great.
that. I thought so too. Yeah, I enjoyed that. Yeah,
but Evan, you and I were kind of going back and forth a little bit on this now earlier. Is some of the problem is the scale has dropped so far. Is a C4 result wipes out that team. So what do you do now, right?
Well, the specific I don't get back to melee briefly, but my specific problem was with pinning.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, so you get +1 for every man, but beyond for every soldier. Well, no, man.
Every soldier.
Man is a technically a game term, but we'll go with soldier because I'm sure there's lots of fine Ukrainian women fighting.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, undoubtedly.
This is per soldier on counter, just so you know.
Okay, per soldier encounter. Sorry. So if you have a 4-person fire team, that gives you +3. Okay, so to have your units pinned, which is essentially like the broken light in MEVO.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, it's the first
Sure
morale result basically, and the lighter morale result, which is much lighter than breaking. So it's basically you roll a d10, and it's if you roll under the C number, equal to or under the casualty number, the number of casualties inflicted on that hex, then the units are pinned, and if not, they're not. So if you have 4 dudettes, then you get a +3. So if you roll a C2, they can't be pinned because you're going to get a +3. So it's no matter what you roll, it's going to be over that. And same thing with the C3. So you have to roll at least a C4. But if you roll a C4 on a 4-person fire team, they're all dead.
No, they're permanently pinned.
Yeah.
Right.
So and again, it's different if you have multiple fire teams in the same hex and blah blah blah. But it seemed like pinning is going to be very, very, very likely, especially for moderately high grade or to high grade troops.
Well, so let's talk about the pinning. So the morale model has changed. You no longer roll for broken. You no longer roll for I take it back. The order of operations is not roll for broken, roll for surrender. Right? Surrendered is gone. Broken is different. The first thing you roll for is pinned, as Evan just described, depends on how many soldiers are on the counter and what the C result was. You only roll for broken on units that were previously pinned if there's another casualty result in the same location. So that morale model has completely changed. Again, better, worse, I don't know, but it's different.
Well, I think the thing is
some of the sorry, and this is maybe where you're going, Evan. Some of the results seem a little weird. Is that, like you were saying, you can't get a pin result on a fire team because they're gonna be dead if you possibly could get a pin result. And maybe that's the intent. I don't know, right? But
it feels probably not that. Like again, same thing with the crew stun. I don't want to get into the whole crew stun thing, but crew stun replaces suppression.
You can read about it on Discord.
Yeah, you can read about Discord. But basically, crew stun replaces suppression. But it's much, much, much less likely to occur. And
correct. And frankly, it doesn't really matter if it does.
Yeah, most of the time, it's never going to matter. But the thing is, if it's in there, it feels like it should matter. And so my personal, I don't know, opinion, is that probably, if anything, you should be going in the opposite direction if you want to quote, I don't know, more realistic model, like is more morale effects, more, especially for vehicles. But I'm totally fine with reducing morale effects. Like it's just a different model. Like it's not better or worse. It's just focused on different things and looking at different things. And clearly, with the gazillion charts and vehicle cards, like it's much more focused on like the weapon systems and their use and their interaction. And that's totally that's cool. Like that'll be fun. But it just I like there is some morale modeled. And it should, it should have an effect on the game if it's in there. Like it's not, like if it never matters, then just take it out. Like if it's, but like with if crew stun and if pinning are almost never going to happen in contexts that matter, just very very limited sets. Like why bother?
Right. Well, it's like you and I talked about it. Most of the time, what's going to happen is you're going to end up pinning the crew served weapons and the leaders because they're smaller counters, right? And you roll per counter, not per hex. Right. So you don't roll a pin result on the hex. You roll a pin result on every counter in the hex. So you're going to end up pinning the smaller dude. So going back to that example earlier, where I broke the one dude off to throw smoke, and then those guys take fire. Well,
he's going to get pinned, but his buddies might not.
Right. So maybe.
So maybe it does. Maybe it does work. That's one of the things where we're talking out. I'm talking out of my ass because yeah. We gotta play it more. But there's definitely things that seem like, wait a second, it doesn't feel like this is how it should work. Just like doing the math on the back of a napkin.
Right. Well, so talking about that a little bit, it's a little bit of a left turn, but we're talking about the prone. You talked a little bit about the prone upright. So each counter comes with a prone side and upright side. which is great from an artist standpoint. But the fact of the matter is it doesn't matter. When you're moving, you're upright. When you're not moving, generally you're prone.
Well, it's not quite true.
Generally, but you're right. It's like what I found when playing the infantry game is it was very, very fiddly. Because you'd have a stack of 6 counters, you'd have to flip them to upright while you're moving, and then once they stop, you'd flip them all back to prone because they stop, right? Unless they happen to assault fire. But even then, I think you can assault fire prone, so that may not even be true. So it just seemed very fiddly of something you could figure out by the status of the counter. Now, again, maybe there's some nuance that I'm missing there.
There's at least one nuance in that you cannot choose to crawl and go. If you're upright and you want to crawl, you can't then choose to go prone. Something like that.
No, I remember something, but yeah. Or maybe it's you can't crawl if you're upright because that would be silly.
Well, you can change whenever you want, except if you choose to crawl. Something like that.
And it costs no movement points to change. Well, so the other thing that got me, it costs no movement points to change. So why am I flipping the counter? Right.
Well, hold on. Let me find the rule.
I kind of vaguely remember what you're talking about. But even
because I just read your comment and I was like,
right, but you could figure out like I was thinking you could figure out whether they're prone or upright. Now, to be fair, you do get one of the things I do like, you get benefits for being prone. It's a +10 DRM on the casualty table.
If everyone's prone, yeah.
And if you're in a building or something, what is it? Because it's cumulative. It's marked cumulative on the cover effect somewhere. Where in the hell did I see that? Anyway, if you're prone, you get we'll say it's for sure in a building. It might have been in woods or something, but you get another +10. So you might be +20 if you're prone in a building, and if you're prone and in a building, you get +20 basically, which is pretty cool. Now, if you fire, I think you cannot be considered prone, or you lose the building model or something like that. But it's very granular as to when you can count being prone, which I like. Right. So
well, okay. So the exception is you can personally use have 2 ways. Is always maybe I read the wrong section. Okay. A unit that announces crawling movement may not change modes. But I don't know. Can you crawl upright? Because you can infiltrate upright, but then you're vulnerable to ambush, which is cool.
Right. I would think you'd have to be prone to crawl because
So I think there's a little bit, but I guess if you're right, if you end just every single time end.
Right. Because as soon as you're done assault moving, you're considered prone. So whatever.
But so I guess that's the only question. Can you assault fire if you assault fire during? I don't think it says anything about that.
Yep. So like I said, there's probably some weirdness in there, and like I said, there's probably some nuance that I just missed, maybe, or maybe not. But
going prone to upright is
the only form of movement allowed by prone side
is crawling
infiltration. Yeah. All other forms require you to be upright. But as soon as you're done assault moving, you just go back to prone, right? So,
But going from prone to upright is an opportunity fire trigger.
It is, or vice versa, right?
It doesn't say that. Just says
I'm sorry. Prone to upright is opportunity fire, right? Which makes sense. You're standing up, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think
people can see you now.
Yeah. And I think it helps balance it a little, or makes it a little bit more.
Oh yeah, so that's
little
what
more
it is.
nuanced.
You can fire prone, you just can't fire heavy weapons when prone.
Okay.
That makes sense.
But
right.
But you can still fire medium. I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah, so machine guns, right? Because you're laying down firing it, right? So,
right.
And I remember there was something about the pop out mechanic of when you're popping out, which I think we also discussed a little bit. I don't remember if that was on the Discord or not, but anyway, when you pop out, you're considered upright, and you don't get any cover. So,
yeah. So I think it might be more fiddly than it's worth, but I think there is a little bit more nuance than like when you first read it. I was like, you could just do. Well, I guess do whatever you want.
Well, no. I guess my point was you don't need to flip the counters. You could know whether you're prone or based on the status counter on the marker. You could know whether you're prone or upright.
Right? But you could also, for example, you could theoretically, because there's no movement cost, which makes it sound like I can just do whatever I want. But on the other hand, you're like, okay, I'm going to assault move these guys flip them to prone to shoot, and then flip them back. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. Flip them back to upright, but then they have an opportunity fire. But they don't have an opportunity fire anyway when they move into the hex. So who cares?
I don't think you would ever want to do that, right? So
yeah.
I think it's more about when you get close and you get onto the ambush rules, which I don't really want to get into too much, but it has to do with infiltration and melee, right? So
the ambush rules look reasonable. But
I like them. I think they're okay. So I don't really want to talk about them too much.
Fair enough.
We could talk about grenade launchers. We could talk about hex side movement. Have bypass. Hex side movement.
Well, that was a comment I was going to make before. ATS goes back and forth between being more ASL-like. I used to think and less ASL-like. I used to think it was like slowly but surely, especially if you use like the optional rules, moving more towards ASL. But I don't think that's actually true. I think it kind of oscillates between getting closer and farther away, depending on the addition and the optionals.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's everybody calls it ASL because that's where you see it most, and it wasn't in ATS. But lots of games have that hex side movement deal, right? So
right.
I like it. Mm-hmm. To be clear, I like it. It always should have been there. I like the fact that it's limited, right? You count 2 hex sides as one. And you can't stay on the hex side, so I think it's a good ad.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that is still the same as in MEVO is that like the halving or the quartering for opportunity fire, depending on how much line of sight there is, that's super fiddly, fiddly for a rule that might not come up that often.
Yeah. But I think whatever. But
yeah, it's good. It's better to have the hex side movement and have the fiddly rule than to not have hex side movement. So that's fine.
Right.
What do you guys think about the artillery rules?
I like them.
Yeah, me too.
I have not gotten that far yet. I'll be honest. I have not gotten that far yet.
Oh, geez, Tony, come on. And let's be clear, folks. Tony got his first.
That's true. He got like 2 days after they shipped.
Yeah. Well, I like the general artillery.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing, and I was talking about this earlier, right? It takes 4 turns, basically. Well, I guess 3 turns to land an FFE. Because first you got to drop a round, then you got to adjust it, then you can call for fire. Nobody's going to be sticking around for that, right? Which is okay, I guess. But now,
I hadn't thought about that.
There are caveats because there's registration hexes, which you skip all that. You just drop the fire, right? Boom, we have that locked in. And then I don't know if you saw my latest comment to you guys, but mortars got way more deadly in this version.
Mm-hmm.
So mortars automatically, unless specifically negated by SSR, all mortar OBA batteries automatically receive 3 registration hexes.
Sweet.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
And any mortar that sets up on map may secretly record 3 hexes as if it had a bot marker. So Tony, there's your bore sighting, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's sweet.
Because it makes sense. So they've sighted in, hey, that's our aiming point, that's our aiming point, that's our aiming point. We sent a couple rounds down there. We know we can hit that target. Boom. So now you can control the approach march of the enemy. That makes mortars very, very much more, well, I guess mortar-like, right?
Yeah, because
I think it's going to make them pretty damn deadly,
so
right? Yeah. So I like that. And I don't know if you guys look, but the accuracy chart is much
kinder,
more compressed, right?
Yeah,
because
much easier to hit,
right?
Yeah,
especially for the guided ones, obviously, but.
Yeah, so it seems like it's easier to hit, but it's also I hadn't considered the fact that my first concern with like taking so long to land or to be able to actually call an FFE.
That's we're gonna have to play that out. I think.
Right.
Does that make an effect? Right.
Yeah, because so it's like okay, you get much less arty, but that's okay because artillery is much more effective, and it actually makes sense for the ATS timescale. Maybe not for the Ukrainians. I don't know if you guys had seen about how they've got all the news websites are calling it like the Uber of artillery, like management systems, because they're just like take it from anywhere, that whatever system, or it doesn't have to be just artillery, but mortars or UAVs or whatever,
right?
And they just call it immediately. So their time from calling in someone requesting a fire to the actual fire landing is much shorter. But for most artillery, and I guess for like the US, it was like much longer. It was like 20 or 40 minutes, so longer than it was in World War II because of like, you got to talk to a lawyer and sign triplicate paperwork,
ROEs, right?
and,
Yeah,
and everything.
These guys are
So
like, hey, they're there. Just drop rounds here.
yeah. So
here's a grid coordinate.
I would consider giving some SSRs for the Ukrainians to not require so much,
Right.
but
well,
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see, do the rules change to reflect some of that? They're
hopefully.
It's kind of already there, and they mentioned it in there that it's an FO, it's a UAV that's doing the FO. It's not really a person sighting in, right?
Yeah.
But so do they change some of that? But again, I think, and we talked about it earlier, it's a compression of the time scale. So that's why it takes so long to actually get the artillery.
Yes. Oh, because each turn is shorter. That makes sense.
Correct.
Well, and I think it makes all makes sense. Though I was kind of worried, like, okay, and is then OBA not going to matter that much? But it's like, well, if it's much more effective, then that'll balance out. Yeah. But I hadn't considered the point that, okay, I see where my opponent put down a CFF. I'm going to move. Right. I mean, you can still hit defensive positions, but
I was going to say you're going to move unless you have to stay there to win.
Right.
Right. So it's going to be much more of a dig them out with artillery defensive. Fire everything as opposed to hit somebody. So, and that's part of the thing with cats is you can just kind of fire it anywhere and kind of catch somebody on the run, and that's
not really how artillery works. Yeah, exactly.
You get positions in place, or you rolled the barrage ahead of you for the attack or something like that, right? So I think it's probably more closer to quote unquote reality.
When I read the rules, and there were a couple different things when I read, and like some of the barrages and concentrations and whatever, like the doubling and the quadrupling. There were just multiple things in the artillery section. I read that, and I was like, this sounds like more how artillery works. Not that the CATS rules are bad. I mean, there's I think a lot of the general procedures make sense, but as you just point out, some of the in-game ways that artillery ends up getting used as a little gamey or ahistorical, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of that stuff you're only going to get by SSR, so it was pre-planned or whatever, right? So that's fine. I can live with it.
Yeah, I'm not not going to hate on cats, but give MEVO its credit where credit is due.
That's right. So we're coming up on I can go for as long as you guys want to go. Do we want to talk about ERA, APS, vehicles? ERA.
Let's split this up. Let's split this sucker up. There's a lot more. I haven't got to that part. I'll be honest with you. Right. I haven't gotten that deep into it, so I really want to spend some more time with it.
Yeah, so I think maybe some more general stuff. I think we probably should do another one that's very specific around certain things. I mean, so talk about like vehicle stuff. Armor factors on the vehicle card. So it's an 8.5 by 11 card, so there's a lot more room. Turrets and a hull. There are 2 armor facings. You roll to see which actually armor facing you hit, which is going to have different effects. It might have lower armor or higher armor or whatever. It might have ERA. It might have ERA, explosive reactive armor, or active protection systems. Right. So in other words, shit on the tank that explodes to stop the shell coming in, basically, in layman's terms. Some of it has nothing. Some of it has degrading values. Some of it can't apply depending on the round you use. So back to the earlier discussion on the ammo, right? Less effective against certain kinds of ammo, and it's a very, very granular armor system for sure.
Yeah, and that's kind of been my big question, I think, ever since MEVO kind of came up was. It seems really cool. It's very sexy. Let's see. Right. I definitely want to see how much of this actually matters. How much is like tanks, turrets exploding and popping off into the air? Every single shot.
Well, that was the thing. Is like, where's the so going back to comparing systems. We always talk about ASL. What MBT is really the system that's closer in time to this main battle tank, right? So first published by Avalon Hill and then recently released by GMT Games, but they have the concept of a brew up. I think it's called a brew up modifier. So certain tanks have a better chance of basically blowing up, right? And it's based on the fact that like those Russian era tanks or Soviet era tanks really that have their ammunition stored, shall we say, less than optimal, so their turrets blow off, right? I could not figure out if it actually mattered in this, and I don't know that it does.
Right. I mean, you might have more catastrophic tank destruction, like, and you might have more like crew deaths in real life, but in like ATS terms scale, that may not. It doesn't really matter how high the turret goes or how. And this is actually how at the crew survives, and this is actually something I was going to ask in the chat, in our secret chat. So I mean, there are now crew markers, and if the crew bails out, they appear on the map. And I can't actually remember like the default rule. Like you can recrew some vehicles, but they can never move again. But they can fire. And I was like, okay, so what? I like the idea of having crews on the map because it's crunchy, it's cool, more counters. But what are the implications? Is it possibly more VPs for the other side if they kill the crew as well? So that actually makes sense because that makes them more vulnerable. Although that having turrets brew up is you should just get the extra VPs.
Right, exactly.
There should be a level beyond burning wreck turret.
Well, but I mean, I think that's why a burn is better. Is a burn? I think burn's usually worse more than just a K kill, right?
No, I think it's the same VPs. Just you get the
is it really
the smoke effect? I think.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
But so like, are you supposed to recrew vehicles with your crew? I mean, are people going to start like running around and shooting M4s with them, which is probably not not very quote historical. What
exactly?
Yeah. So. I'll have to read back over those rules, but we'll kind of see how that kind of thing plays out.
Okay.
Good stuff. Well, gents, I mean, we could probably talk about 17 hours about MEVO.
So I think here's the thing. Yeah, I think we should do another one. We'll talk about things like sensors and grenade launchers, and we'll talk about crew stunning. We'll talk about what else crunchy stuff that we not. I think we kind of touched on hit location, but I think we probably want to do that again. There's thermal imaging, and I think we should devote some time to helicopters and UAVs for sure, because I think it's a modern war, right? Where's UAVs and body armor? So there is body armor. There are exoskeletons. We can get into that. Right?
Futuristic.
A little futuristic, right? So I think we can get into that. But I think maybe maybe just kind of not final, but final for this podcast. General thoughts on MEVO and the path forward.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good,
Tony.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I'll have time to study through up these things, and maybe I think I need to throw some sample scenarios up like you did, Mitch, just to play around with it, and nothing. Don't have to do a full scenario. Just throw some counters on the maps and see what happens, and go through a couple turns to see what comes up for sure.
Okay, you're here. Yeah, I agree on that. Well, I might play a small scenario. We'll kind of see how the gaming table space goes in the next couple of weeks. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I feel more confident and more. I mean, obviously, far more excited for my own personal reasons, but also just from a game standpoint about MEVO than WeVo. So I think it's. I definitely think it's worth, if you're interested in this period and don't mind some DIY. This isn't like a review, go buy this, because then you'll come back and be like, Evan told me to buy it. What an idiot. I'm so mad.
Right. But, and I mean, let's be perfectly clear. This is not a cheap product. You have to buy at least the first two.
Right. That's
right. You probably want to buy the first three to really get a good set of stuff. And then depending on what happens with 5, 6, 7, and 8, you may or may not be able to play some of the scenarios out of those, because it might call for maps that you don't own. So it is definitely not an inexpensive investment.
Yes, this is not like a recommendation to buy it, but
correct. If you have an interest in it, I would definitely stay tuned.
Yes. It's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting. There's a lot of very cool stuff.
Definitely limited print runs, right? I mean, yes, Ray decided. I shouldn't say Ray. I should say Critical Hit, but Ray pretty much is Critical. Whatever. Decided that they were going to do a much smaller or another smaller print run, but like somebody on the Discord, was it Discord or Facebook group, pointed out, the price is not the same as the initial introductory price, right? The price on the print run is the fully loaded price. So if you're going to get in when the getting's good.
Yeah.
Which is the CH model, for better or for worse. It just is.
Well, at some point, wait 15 years. It'll be a noble life for cheap.
You can pick it up. You can pick it up on the secondary market at some point. Somebody's going to say, "This is bullshit. I'm out." Whatever, right? Or when modern Evo ATS, whatever Scott Eagles ends up calling it, comes out, as long as one of you owns the product, which is the legal definition of playing, as far as I'm concerned, then you'll be good to go, right? But I think, I mean, for me, clearly I like Modern Warfare. So it's they're insta buys for me, and I'm excited to see what comes. I'm really excited to actually start playing it as opposed to just. I detest playing solo. Sorry, but I'm really excited to push counters around against opponents and see what's what, and does it really work? And I think, I can't remember if you said it, Evan or Tony. What does it really feel like to play? Is it just World War II on steroids, or is it really kind of?
Does it feel new?
Does it feel new? Right? And does it capture our, admittedly, probably misconception of Modern Warfare?
Yeah, all the things about the scale, physical scale, the time scale, time compression.
Right.
Then that's, I think I mentioned this somewhere, that's the big thing. I mean, I think, there might be little details or whatever about the adaptation of the weapon systems isn't perfect, but you look at the rules and the vehicle cards and the stats, it all looks pretty good to me. Like,
right.
It seems pretty reasonable. Like, it doesn't it feels like they got censored, like things people have always been worried about, like transferring World War II ASL or ATS to Modern Warfare. It seems all covered. That's not the real issue. The real issue is if the time scale and the space scale, the destructive scale, if those things all scale.
Right.
And stay tuned, because we'll let you know.
we will definitely hit it again.
So. Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
All right, team.
All right, boys.
Have a good one.
Oh, yeah. We'll see you next time on ATS Fully Engaged on the Rocks. Peace.
Gonna nuke this site from orbit, just be sure.